Article 1, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So the very first article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights sets the tone for this important document by affirming that all humans are born free and equal. Rights are not earned, but they are inherent and automatic to all humans. Article 2. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or under any other limitation of sovereignty. Article 2 recognizes freedom from discrimination. This is linked to Article 1 in the sense that this notion crystallizes the concept that all humans are captured by this article, irrespective of personal characteristics or personal traits. It's also an important article in the sense that it has set the precedent for many international and domestic standards on a legal front.
Article 3. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. This article is fundamental to other rights in the Declaration. You obviously need to be alive in order to enjoy your other rights, such as the right to get married, the right to have a nationality, to have the right to express yourself, and freedom of speech in general. It's also related to the banning of the death penalty, to the deprivation of healthcare, to sustainability and climate change, because all of these affect our ability to stay alive. The right to liberty is the right to express oneself, to be able to make decisions, to have the freedom to make choices for yourself without any restriction. And lastly, the right to security is essentially what protects the right to life and to liberty, because if you're under constant threat, you won't be able to truly enjoy those rights. Article 4. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in other forms. Slavery and servitude are different but related terms. When someone is enslaved, you own them. When someone is under servitude, you don't necessarily own them, but they are still forced to do your work under threat of punishment. Slavery and servitude, although different, essentially have the same result, which is forced work or rape. This article also tries to ban the slave trade, which is essentially the kidnapping and imprisonment of others to sell them to others for forced labor.
Article 5. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Article 5 is one of the most universally accepted provisions within the UDHR. All agree that torture should be banned, although there has been some debate over the years over what constitutes torture. Article 6. Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. So as the article mentions, it recognizes the rights of every person before the law. In a Canadian context, this article is particularly interesting when we look back to the persons case. So before 1929, women weren't allowed to hold a seat in the Senate due to the fact that they weren't considered persons before the law. So ultimately, this article recognizes that everybody is a person.
Article 7. All are equal before the law and are entitled, without any discrimination, to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration and against any incitement to such discrimination. This article means that no one should be treated differently under the law because of their identity. For example, their race, their religion, their gender, or their sexual orientation. It also means that everyone should have the same protections under the law, no matter their identity. So no one can be treated differently or have a worse treatment, but it also means that they have to have the same rights and protections and benefits under the law as anyone else.
Article 8. Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him by the Constitution or by law. The right to remedy is essentially the right to seek justice or redress. That form of redress or remedy can take several forms. It can take the form of financial compensation, symbolic gestures, legislative change, amongst others.
No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. So this article is closely related to Article 3, the right to life, liberty, and security. An arbitrary action is an action that is taken without any legal basis. So for example, in order for an arrest, a detention, or an exile to be done correctly, there has to be legal procedure behind it, such as a procedure that is appropriate, that is predictable, and that is proportionate to the measures in place. So if it were done without a procedure like that, such as a fair trial, so if it was taken on a whim or without any due process, then it becomes arbitrary.
Article 10. Everyone is entitled in full equality to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal in the determination of his rights and obligations and of any criminal charge against him. The right to a fair trial is a hallmark and cornerstone of a free society. What constitutes a fair trial? A fair trial includes, for instance, the right to be considered innocent until proven guilty. It includes the right to an impartial hearing. It also includes the principle against self-incrimination.
Article 11. 1. Everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, according to law, in a public trial at which he has had all of the guarantees necessary for his defense. 2. No one shall be held guilty of any penal offense on account of any act or omission which did not constitute a penal offense under national or international law at the time when it was committed, nor shall a heavier penalty be imposed than the one that was applicable at the time the penal offense was committed. So the first half of this article means that everyone has the right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. And the only way to really be proven guilty is to be found guilty after a fair trial where you've had the right to fully defend yourself. The second part of the article means that someone can't be found guilty of an offense if it wasn't an offense at the time that they committed it, so they can't be found guilty of it retroactively. It also means that they can have a heavier penalty than what was provided for at the time that they committed an offense, even if that changes later on.
Article 12. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. The right to privacy takes on various forms in the world today, especially when we consider, for instance, the prominence of digital privacy. It's important to note that the right to privacy is not absolute. In fact, it can be limited in several circumstances. For example, with obtaining a search warrant in a variety of criminal matters, and so on and so forth.
Article 13. 1. Everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. 2. Everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country. This article means that people can live anywhere and travel anywhere within their own country. This is especially relevant when people have to leave their homes because of natural disaster or because of war. The second part of the article means that even though countries can restrict entry into their own country, they can't prevent people from leaving their country. And just like you can leave your own country has to allow you to come back home.
Article 14. Everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. This right may not be invoked in the case of prosecutions genuinely arising from non-political crimes or from acts contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. Stated briefly, asylum is the act of seeking refuge in another country while an individual is fleeing from persecution. It's important to note, however, that this right is not unconditional. It is not a right that is available to everybody in any circumstance. For instance, those guilty of international crimes do not qualify for asylum.
Article 15. 1. Everyone has the right to a nationality. 2. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality, nor denied the right to change his nationality. This article means that everyone is entitled to be a citizen of a country, and you can't deprive someone of their nationality without due process, the same way that you can't prevent someone from changing their nationality if they want to when they follow a due process.
Article 16. men and women of full age, without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion, have the right to marry and to found a family. They're entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and at its dissolution. Marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of the intending spouses. The family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state. This article is powerful because it specifically identifies men and women as particular groups, as opposed to other articles which they do refer to men and women, but they will use the language of everyone or all people. So this article very much entrenches and reinforces the principle of gender equality.
Article 17. 1. Everyone has the right to own property, alone as well as in association with others. 2. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property. This article enshrines the right to own property and that no one can arbitrarily take away your property. The right to property is relevant when we think about the property of Jews that were arbitrarily confiscated during the Holocaust, or that women weren't allowed to own things in previous ownership laws. Article 17 also recognizes the right of Indigenous peoples to own their land and artifacts.
Article 18. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. In brief, Article 18 asserts the right to freedom of thought and religion. Although universally recognized, there are still many challenges with respect to the application of this principle. For instance, there are many countries where there is a plurality of religions, where the religion of the majority will largely outfavor or will dominate the religion associated with the minority community.
Article 19. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. The right of freedom of expression and opinion is necessary for many other rights in the Declaration, such as the right to religion, the right to participate in public affairs, the right of assembly, and the right of association. That said, the right of expression isn't unlimited. For example, it can't be used for hate speech.
Article 20. Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. No one may be compelled to belong to an association. Article 20 protects acts of assembly and association. So for instance, strikes, marches, sit-ins, there are countless examples of acts under the categories of assembly and association. This article is also important because it recognizes the importance of civil movements and the central role they play in bringing progress in our society. Similar to other articles, this is not an absolute right, and the key word here is peaceful assembly.
Article 21. 1. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country directly or through freely chosen representatives. 2. Everyone has the right of equal access to public service in his country. 3. The will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. This will shall be expressed in periodic and genuine elections, which shall be by universal and equal suffrage, and shall be held by secret vote or by equivalent free voting procedures. This article sets out the principles of democracy. It requires that everyone be able to participate in their government and in electing their government. So, for example, in Canada, that everyone be able to participate in the election of the parliament, of the provincial parliament, or in municipal government, for example. It also requires that everyone be allowed to participate in public service, no matter any aspect of their identity. So no matter their gender or their sexual orientation or their race, they have to be able to participate without discrimination.
Article 22. Everyone as a member of society has the right to social security and is entitled to realization through national effort and international cooperation and in accordance with the organization and resources of each state of the economic, social, and cultural rights indispensable for his dignity and the free development of his personality. This article lists a series of qualities that are almost universally accepted as being those of a modern welfare state. What's interesting about this article, maybe from an anecdotal perspective, is that Eleanor Roosevelt was actually opposed to its inclusion because she believed that the UDHR should refer to the rights of people as opposed to the obligations of the state. This view was contested by the Soviet bloc at the time and also of the Canadian delegates, and ultimately included in the UDHR.
Article 23. 1. Everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable conditions of work, and to protection against unemployment. 2. Everyone, without any discrimination, has the right to equal pay for equal work. 3. Everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself and his family an existence worthy of human dignity, and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. 4. Everyone has the right to form and to join trade unions for the protection of his interests. This article sets out the fundamental principles of employment rights. Everyone has the right to choose where and how they want to work, and to be able to negotiate for fair working conditions by themselves or with their union. This allows them to protect themselves against the consequences of unemployment. This article is also related to Article 4 for freedom from slavery, and that no one can force another person to work.
Article 24. Everyone has the right to rest and leisure, including a reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay. Article 24 is important in that it represented a major development for workers' rights around the world. It can alternatively be described as the right to not be overworked. It's a fairly interesting article in the sense that it also engages corporate responsibilities. So under the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, companies are at a minimum encouraged to respect the right to rest and leisure as part of their responsibilities.
Article 25. 1. Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his control. 2. Motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection. This article provides for the right to live without poverty. It means that if you ever end up in a situation, a disadvantaged situation outside of your control, so for example, if you have a disability, your country shall help you out with the basic necessities of life. This article also talks about children of married and unmarried parents, and essentially provides that they should have the same protection no matter the situation of their parents.
Article 26. Everyone has the right to education. Education shall be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages. Elementary education shall be compulsory. Technical and professional education shall be made generally available, and higher education shall be equally accessible to all on the basis of merit. Education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. It shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, racial or religious groups, and shall further the activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace. Parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children. Article 26 outlines the right to education in various forms. It includes the right to free primary education, and it opens the door to potentially free secondary and higher education. Since the inception of the UDHR, this right has been widely implemented and recognized around the world.
Article 27. 1. Everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. 2. Everyone has the right to the protection of the moral and material interests resulting from any scientific, literary, or artistic production of which he is the author. This article enshrines the right to participate in community through the arts or through other scientific advancements. For example, during war, one of the goals of military forces is to destroy the morale and sense of identity of the opposing forces. one of the ways to do that is to destroy cultural symbols. So for example, monuments, places of worship, or museums. This article tries to prevent that.
Article 28. Everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration can be fully realized. Article 28 recognizes that a world at peace is essential for the respect of human rights. It sets out the global interest in promoting human rights. For instance, Canadians should strive to promote peace and human rights in Canada and abroad. This raises a myriad of issues of global interest for which we must all work together, such as climate change.
Article 29. 1. Everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of his personality is possible. 2. In the exercise of his rights and freedoms, everyone shall be subject only to such limitations as are determined by law solely for the purpose of securing due recognition and respect for the rights and freedoms of others, and of meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, and the general welfare in a democratic society. 3. These rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. This declaration sets out mostly rights that we have simply because we're human. Article 29 establishes the rights that we all have towards each other. We have to protect everyone else's rights and freedoms just like they have to protect ours. So for example, your rights and freedoms end where someone else's rights and freedoms begin. Finally, Article 29 outlines that our rights and freedoms cannot be enjoyed in a way that goes against the purposes of the Declaration. Article 30. Nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying, for any state, group, or person, any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth herein. The idea behind Article 30 is that none of our rights and freedoms are divisible. They are all connected to each other and they're all as equally important. This article also tries to prevent any group or any person from using the Declaration to justify their actions where they breach someone else's rights and freedoms.